This is HFY Vanguard, where courage meets cunning and every star hides a new challenge. Hold tight, the adventure begins. The Arizona sun bored down like a furnace as Randy Archer stood alone in the desert, staring at the letter in his trembling hands. His t-shirt clung to his back with sweat, his boots baked in the heat, and the only shade for miles was the rusted husk of a pickup truck he'd driven as far as the gravel would allow. He read the letter again, hoping the third time would make more sense. To my grandson Randy, the mine is yours now. No one else may enter, not safely. Take the key. The bond must be formed naturally. Do not force it. You'll understand when it happens. Love, Arthur. He exhaled sharply, folding the paper and shoving it into the back pocket of his jeans. Crazy old bastard, he muttered, glancing at the lawyer who'd delivered the inheritance, an impeccably dressed man named Gutterman, with slick black hair and a face that never cracked a smile. Your grandfather was quite particular, Gutterman said, with a nasal tone and a faint curl of disdain. The property has been in your family since 1937. No one has entered the mine for over 30 years. That was his condition. Randy looked out at the landscape. Miles of cracked earth, scrub brush, and dry, whispering wind. So what's here? A hole in the ground, a rusted pickaxe, and a warning sign. The lawyer didn't react. Instead, he opened a metal briefcase and handed Randy a small but ornate box. Inside, you'll find the key in your grandfather's personal research journal. The property taxes are paid through next year. After that, well, it's your responsibility. Randy stared at the box in his hands. Brass hinges, strange circular designs etched into the surface. It didn't look like anything from a mining company. It looked ancient, ceremonial, almost alien. Fantastic, he said dryly, watching Gutterman retreat to his Mercedes. The car disappeared in a trail of dust, leaving Randy alone with his inheritance and his questions. At 32, Randy Archer had mastered the art of starting things he couldn't finish. 3 failed businesses, 1 bachelor's degree. He never used a trail of bad credit and a long list of ex-girlfriends who all said some version of, "You've got potential," but no plan. He was the kind of guy bartenders knew by name and friends stopped calling. Now he was the proud owner of a dead man's mystery and a plot of desert that felt like a punchline. He opened the box. The key inside was unlike anything he'd ever seen, heavy brass about 6 inches long, with an intricate series of carved rings and symbols along the shaft. Beneath it lay a thick leather journal, pages, yellowed and brittle at the corners. Flipping through it, he saw diagrams, notes in his grandfather's spidery hand, and phrases that made no sense. Conduit of resonance, binding protocol, latent genetic imprint. Last chance to be useful, Gramps Randy muttered. The hike to the mine entrance was rough, no real path, just a dry wash winding into the foothills. It took him half an hour under the sun, and by the time he arrived, he was drenched in sweat and halfway convinced he'd passed a rattlesnake without noticing. But then he saw it, and all thought stopped. There was no mine shaft. Instead, embedded directly into the face of the mountain, was a massive circular door. 10 feet in diameter, constructed of a dark matte metal that looked neither rusted nor polished, like it had simply been there forever. Across its surface were rows of unfamiliar symbols, loops, triangles, and curling script that shimmered faintly in the sunlight, like the door itself was alive and watching. Randy blinked. What the hell? He approached cautiously, running a hand across the surface. The symbols didn't feel engraved. They felt smooth, like the metal had grown around them. As his fingers brushed one spiral shape near the center, it seemed to pulse softly beneath his skin, sending a tingle up his arm. He found the keyhole by accident. A nearly invisible seam at the center of the door had a small opening just large enough for the brass key. With a nervous glance back at the empty desert, Randy slid the key in and turned. The door responded. Deep within the mountain, ancient gears groaned to life. Dust fell from the rocks above as the door began to slide open, not with a grind, but with an eerie hydraulic whisper. The earth itself seemed to breathe as the gateway parted, revealing what lay beyond. Not a mine, a corridor. Black stone walls, smooth and seamless, extended into the darkness. As the door opened wider, thin strips of glowing blue light flickered on along the floor and ceiling, illuminating the path ahead with a cold technological glow. The air inside was cooler, charged with something metallic, like the aftermath of a lightning strike. Randy stared mouth dry. This is not a mine. He stepped forward, heart pounding. The journal trembled in his backpack. The deeper he moved into the corridor, the more his reality unraveled. This wasn't something his grandfather built. Hell, it wasn't something humans built. Every footstep echoed like a drumbeat in a tomb, and yet he kept walking. Down the corridor, the air grew thinner, more focused. The walls almost seemed to pulse. Randy didn't know where he was going, only that something old, patient, and utterly alien was waiting. And now that he'd opened the door, it was awake. The corridor sloped gently downward, the light strips flaring to life as Randy advanced, as if the place recognized him, anticipated him. He passed no wires, no vents, no signs of construction. This wasn't built, he realized it was grown. The air remained cool and clean, though it carried a faint electric tang that made his arm hairs stand on end. After nearly 100 yards, the tunnel opened into a vast circular chamber with a domed ceiling that curved high above. More of those glowing strips flickered on, revealing a strange fusion of Victorian-era machinery and sleek alien tech. Brass gears rotated slowly in glass cases. Copper pipes snaked around consoles made of translucent crystal. It was like walking into the fever dream of a steampunk engineer who discovered antimatter. In the center stood a heavy workbench littered with notebooks and tools. Randy approached cautiously, recognizing the handwriting in the open journal as his grandfather's. He picked it up and read a page dated June 3, 1982. The symbols function both as language and mathematical code. The entire structure appears to be a living machine. I suspect the chamber beyond contains the source. The inner markings are different, more like warnings than instructions. Randy looked up. Inner door, he muttered. Sure enough, on the far side of the chamber, half hidden behind a tall humming device, was a second entrance, a narrow archway he hadn't noticed before. Unlike the smooth walls around him, the path beyond that arch looked jagged, raw, like someone had carved into the mountain with brute force. Randy hesitated. This was the part of the horror movie where the dumb guy went further in instead of leaving. But he wasn't leaving. Something deeper than curiosity pulled at him now. Something warm and instinctual, like a magnet behind his sternum. With a deep breath, he stepped through the archway and began descending the steep, uneven tunnel. It felt like the earth itself had tried to bury what lay at the end. The passage dropped nearly 200 feet before ending in another door. This one smaller, but made of the same strange material. Symbols on its surface pulsed with faint reddish light, and as Randy stepped closer, the door responded with a hiss, sliding open automatically. Warm air rushed out, saturated with static, and a scent that was shockingly familiar. Ozone and something like cinnamon. What waited inside stopped him cold. The chamber was enormous, at least the size of a basketball court, with a ceiling that vanished into darkness. Suspended in the center was a massive crystalline capsule 10 feet long and glowing softly in hues of blue and green. Thick tarnished metal chains held it aloft, stretching upward into the gloom. Surrounding it were rings of strange machines, blinking with alien symbols and gentle hums. Inside the capsule floated a figure. Randy's breath caught in his throat. He stepped forward slowly, disbelieving his own eyes. She was female, humanoid, suspended in luminescent liquid that glowed like starlight. Her body floated weightlessly, arms relaxed, hair fanned out around her head like a silver halo. Her skin was violet, soft, and iridescent, and her features were elegant, almost sculpted. She was beautiful in a way that bypassed logic and hit Randy like a punch to the gut. "This can't be real," he whispered. There was no sign of breathing equipment, no wires, no data readouts. This wasn't a cryogenic sleep chamber like in movies. This was something else entirely, a preservation. A prison. A lie. Still dazed, Randy found himself drawn to a console near the base of the capsule. The control surface shimmered as he neared symbols dancing across its surface like ripples on a pond. He reached out without thinking. The moment his fingers brushed the glass-like screen, the entire room shuddered. The capsule's fluid began to bubble and drain with impossible speed, sucked into vents hidden along the frame. The machines around the room whirred to life, their lights intensifying. Gears turned. Chains groaned. The capsule began to hiss along its seams. No, what the hell did I do? Randy slapped at the console, searching for a stop button. A reset anything. The capsule split open with a rush of vapor, its halves unfolding like a flower in bloom. Mist poured out, swirling in eerie waves. Randy stumbled backward, hard hammering. He tripped over a pipe and hit the floor just as she stepped out. Tall, graceful, alien. Her skin glistened with residual moisture, shimmering in deep violet tones. Her eyes opened slowly, brilliant emerald green that glowed in the dark. Her silver hair fell in rippling waves down to her waist, partially obscuring a body that seemed sculpted by design, covered only by ceremonial strips of iridescent cloth, held together by delicate metallic symbols. She stretched languidly like a cat waking from a long sleep. Then her gaze found Randy. Her eyes narrowed. "At long last, my prison is unsealed," she said, her voice melodic but strange, an archaic accent formal and layered with alien cadence. "Art thou, he who claimeth dominion over me?" Randy blinked. "What?" She tilted her head, adjusting to his reaction. "Thy tongue has shifted in my slumber." "I see." Her tone changed slightly, adapting. "I am Aurelia Lysar Rosa, last guardian of the Stellar Covenant, and thou art now my master by ancient contract." Randy scrambled to his feet and back toward the exit. "I'm nobody's master," he said quickly. "I don't know anything about a contract." Aurelia stepped forward, graceful but uncertain, her balance recovering with each motion. Her voice dropped lower, soothing and terrible in its certainty. "The awakening is already done. Thy touch sealed the bond. Thy blood, thy essence, has completed the ritual." "You've got the wrong guy," Randy snapped, inching toward the archway. This was my grandfather's mine. I didn't mean to." Pain exploded in his chest. He dropped to his knees, gasping, as something invisible wrapped around his lungs, his veins, his bones. It was as if the air itself turned hostile fire, running through every nerve. Aurelia stood in the arch, watching him with curiosity, like a scientist watching a test subject convulse. "Thou may not leave me," now she said. "The tether is newly formed, its limits unforgiving." Randy screamed as the world burned from the inside. And yet, even through the pain, a terrible thought echoed in his mind. She's not just a prisoner. She's not just beautiful. She's dangerous. And I'm tied to her now, whether I want it or not. Randy lay sprawled on the smooth stone floor, gasping as the fire receded from his bloodstream. His entire body throbbed as if his nerves had been yanked inside out and then shoved back in the wrong way. Sweat soaked his shirt, and the air around him buzzed with static tension. He could taste copper in his mouth. Aurelia moved toward him with unhurried grace. Her bare feet made no sound against the stone, and the closer she came, the easier it became to breathe. The pressure in his chest lessened. The fire died down. By the time she stood before him, Randy could finally draw a full breath. "I have done nothing to thee," she said calmly. "It is the covenant that binds us, formed by thy hands, sealed by thy touch." He stared up at her, still dazed. "You mean that console back there? That was a contract." Her emerald eyes glowed faintly. "That panel is part of the awakening mechanism. It requires intent, or at the very least proximity combined with resonance. Your essence has activated the link. The bond is now permanent." Randy laughed bitterly. "Fantastic. First inheritance I've ever gotten, and it turns out to be an alien chain." Aurelia crouched beside him, her ceremonial garments shimmering faintly in the chamber's light. Her posture was regal, her tone clinical, as if explaining a simple medical fact to a stubborn child. "You are the first to touch the console in nearly 2 centuries. That makes you the rightful anchor of the tether." "Anchor," Randy repeated, grimacing. "That makes me sound like a weight." "In a way, you are." Her gaze lingered on his face. "Your presence stabilizes my systems, my consciousness, my very form." "You're telling me I'm your battery?" She considered this a crude term, but not entirely inaccurate. "Our bond transfers energy. I take and I give." "Oh, I'm sure you do." Randy sat up with effort, keeping his back to the cold stone wall. "Listen, I don't want to be part of any interstellar arranged marriage. Can't we just, break it, cut the tether?" Aurelia's expression softened, though her voice remained steady. "There is only one known method of severing the bond once formed." "Great. Hit me with it." "Death," she said simply. Randy blinked. "Mine. Both. Though yours is significantly easier to achieve." He stared at her. "You're a riot, you know that." I am adapting to your vernacular, she replied. Sarcasm, humor, deflection through wit, common in human males. He groaned and rubbed his temples. This is insane. You're not even supposed to exist. None of this makes sense. Aurelia rose and moved toward the console again, her movement smoother now, stronger. And yet, here we are. As she reached out to touch the panel, a soft hum spread through the room. Lights brightened subtly. Machines responded to her presence. It was as though the entire chamber recognized her as something sacred. I grow weaker, she admitted, glancing back. Though I am no longer in stasis, my systems are fragile. Dormancy depletes regenerative capacity. I require sustenance. Randy tensed. Sustenance, right. What kind? She tilted her head, silver hair cascading over one shoulder. Not thy flesh, if that concerns thee, but thy energy. It is embedded within the bond. A slow chill crept up Randy's spine. Define energy. Physical proximity transfers minor amounts, she said, stepping closer. Direct contact transfers more. Intimate contact is most efficient. He raised both hands in defense. Okay, let's just hit the brakes. No space kisses or galactic honeymoon rituals, got it. Her lips curled, not quite a smile, more like amusement wrapped in formality. Without energy, I will deteriorate, and as I fade, so too shall the tether destabilize. The pain will return, stronger. Right. So I'm stuck with you or I die screaming, Randy muttered. God, Grandpa really set me up with the worst roommate in the universe. Roommate, she asked, curious. Forget it. He sighed, then hesitated. Okay, so what do you want me to do? Touch your hand. She extended her palm toward him, violet fingers open. Begin with touch. I shall not harm thee. He reached out warily. The moment his skin made contact with hers, a jolt of sensation shot up his arm. Not painful, but electric, like dipping into a current of warm water laced with static. The tingling grew stronger as he held her hand. A strange euphoria bloomed in his chest, spreading through his body like a perfect rush of adrenaline and nostalgia mixed together. He exhaled shakily. What the hell? Aurelia's skin glowed brighter, her violet tone deepening to rich amethyst. Her posture straightened. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. Better, she whispered. When she released his hand, Randy stumbled back a step, dazed. You fed off me, he said. Like a psychic vampire. A dramatic phrasing, but functionally accurate. Randy rubbed his hand, which still buzzed faintly. So now what? You gonna feed on me like a snack pack every 3 hours? I will consume only what is needed, she replied, and you shall be compensated in turn. Compensated, he repeated. In what space? Coupons, knowledge, power, evolution. Her eyes met his again. The more our energies align, the more we become one. The potential is vast. That sounds less like compensation and more like assimilation. Perspective. He shook his head and turned toward the exit. I need air, or whiskey, or both. But he hadn't made it 5 steps before the pain slammed into him again, like hot iron rods jammed into his ribs. He collapsed, choking, gasping, clawing at his chest. Return to me, Aurelia said calmly. Through the haze of agony, Randy dragged himself backward until he was within 10 meters of her again. The pain stopped instantly. He slumped over, panting. This is hell, he said. No, she said, stepping toward him. This is only the beginning. The days blurred together inside the alien facility. Time flowed differently underground. No sunrises, no clocks, only the slow pulse of the blue ambient lights and the steady hum of ancient machines. Randy didn't even know how long he'd been down there anymore. A few hours, a day longer. He tried sleeping in the outer lab, curled in a makeshift bed near his grandfather's old workbench. But the tether made it impossible to rest for long. Anytime he drifted too far, more than 20 or 30 meters from Aurelia, his blood screamed and his lungs turned to stone. So instead of fighting it, Randy adapted. He followed her deeper into the chamber. They stayed close, awkwardly sharing space in a reality that felt like a dream built from math and stardust. He'd learned to read her signs. When her glow dimmed, when her posture wilted slightly, she needed energy. A touch here, a graze of the fingers there. He hated how natural it was starting to feel, like giving a part of himself to keep her breathing made sense. Like she wasn't a threat, but a responsibility. Aurelia never begged. She never demanded. She simply offered her hand when she grew weak, and Randy gave her what she needed. But this time she didn't wait. Randy was sitting against the crystalline wall chewing on stale protein bars from his emergency ration pack when she approached him. Her skin had lost its shine again. The faint amethyst glow he'd come to recognize as stable was fading. Her eyes, though still brilliant, seemed unfocused. The brief contact was insufficient, she murmured almost apologetically. He stood quickly. What do you need? Her eyes locked with his. More intimate connection. The words hung between them like static. Randy's mouth went dry. Define intimate, because you aliens seem to have a very open interpretation of that word. Instead of answering, she stepped forward and pressed her hand flat against his chest. Her touch was cool but pulsing with heat beneath the surface. The moment contact was made, that electric sensation hit him again, but stronger, more personal, like something reaching into his thoughts and gently pulling memories loose. Aurelia's breathing slowed, her eyes closed, and then without warning, she leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't clumsy, it wasn't tentative, it was absolute. The moment their lips touched, Randy's knees almost gave out. A surge of sensation detonated through his spine. Not just pleasure knowledge, visions. He saw a sky with twin suns over a planet of crystalline towers. He felt wind that tasted like lightning. He flew without wings, his body soaring over oceans of light. He saw Aurelia's world through her eyes, the rise of her people, their war, their fall, the crash, the pain of imprisonment. When she finally pulled away, he was gasping. So was she. What the hell was that? He panted. Aurelia's cheeks were flushed subtly beautifully. Her glow returned brighter than before. Her skin shimmered like wet violet glass, and her ceremonial garments fluttered with invisible energy. Energy transfer, she whispered, and a taste of the knowledge I can share. Randy leaned against the wall to keep from collapsing. Understatement of the century. She looked at him with a strange mix of gratitude and something else, curiosity maybe. Admiration. You are stronger than you appear, Randall Archer. He laughed breathlessly. Don't say stuff like that. It sounds like you're about to knight me with a plasma sword. They didn't speak of the kiss again, not that day. But the next time she grew weak, he didn't wait for her to ask. He stepped forward, touched her shoulder, and let it happen. Each connection brought more than energy. It brought flashes, glimpses of her past, fragments of emotion that weren't his but felt like they were. It was as if each exchange threaded their minds closer, and bit by bit they were becoming intertwined. And with that closeness came something else, trust. They ventured deeper into the mountain down a new corridor Aurelia said she could now sense. The further they went, the stronger her steps became, the clearer her voice grew. This facility was built around the remnants of my vessel, she explained, running her fingers along a wall that shimmered beneath her touch. It lies below dormant, but not dead. A spaceship, Randy asked. She nodded. A living one, grown not forged. Like me, it responds to resonance, and like me, it sleeps. And you think we can wake it with enough energy and trust. They reached a large stone door with no seams, no visible controls. Aurelia placed her palm against it. The wall hummed, then slowly dissolved into dust, revealing a vast underground chamber. At its center sat the vessel's sleek, crystalline curve like the rib cage of a giant creature. Parts of it were buried in stone, but the shape was unmistakable. It looked more like an organic cathedral than a machine. Holy crap, Randy whispered. It's beautiful. Aurelia didn't answer. She stepped forward, like someone reuniting with a long-lost friend. Her hands trembled as she touched the outer hull. Lights shimmered beneath its surface in response green, gold, blue. Faint at first, then stronger. It remembers me, she whispered. After all this time, then her expression darkened. Randy followed her gaze. Something moved at the edge of the cavern, a flicker, a shadow, then a faint whirring noise. He squinted. Was that a— Yes, Aurelia said sharply. A drone, military grade, not civilian. Randy swore under his breath. Someone's been watching the site, he said. Maybe since the day Grandpa found this place. Aurelia turned back to the ship, placing both hands against the surface. Then we have little time. Randy looked from the ship to the tunnel they'd entered. Little time before what? She didn't look at him when she spoke. Before they try to take me again. Randy's heart thudded as he stared at the empty air where the drone had vanished. It hadn't been large, just a small black sphere with 4 thin stabilizer wings and a blinking red core, but its message was clear. They know. He turned to Aurelia, who was still touching the alien ship's hull, her violet skin illuminated by faint pulses of green light radiating from within the vessel. The ship responded to her like it recognized her, not just her presence, but her essence. "You said someone's been watching," Randy said, walking quickly back to her side. "Who, the government black site contractors, or some men in black alien containment task force?" "Likely a hybrid of all three," Aurelia replied. "During my captivity, various factions attempted to study this place. Your grandfather's journals suggest he infiltrated one such faction to protect my resting chamber. But after decades of silence, they're back," Randy finished grimly, "and they brought toys." As if on cue, the lights in the chamber flickered. Aurelia's expression tensed. "They've activated an external pulse, an energy disruptor." Randy swore under his breath. "How the hell did they find us so fast?" She turned toward him. "The bonding. When our energies merged, it created a spike when the surrounding surveillance satellites would not miss." "So what now?" he asked already, stepping back toward the entryway. "We run, we fight. You got alien guns in this magic cathedral of yours." Aurelia stepped forward and touched his chest, halting his panic. "There is another way, but it will require more." "More what?" "More of you. More of me." Her emerald eyes searched his, a complete fusion. Randy's blood chilled. "You mean another kiss?" Her expression didn't waver. "No, I mean complete integration of body, mind, and energy. The ship needs a unified conduit to fully awaken. One being composed of two souls." He blinked. "You're talking about a psychic fusion ritual. You and me, together, merged." "Yes," she said simply. The chamber shuddered again. Dust rained from the ceiling. The lights on the hull dimmed for a moment, flickering like a dying heartbeat. "And if we don't?" he asked quietly. "Then this place remains a tomb," Aurelia said. "And we remain prisoners, captured, dissected, erased." Randy glanced at the entry tunnel. A low hum now echoed through it, familiar, cold, unmistakable aircraft engines, grounded and primed. Heavy footsteps. He knew that sound from every sci-fi movie and paranoid YouTube video he'd ever watched. The military had arrived. Randy stepped away from her and ran to the edge of the platform, peering through a narrow gap in the stone. Outside, black tactical vehicles were unloading armored figures in sleek exosuits. Their helmets glowed with HUD projections. Their rifles crackled with charged energy. Behind them rolled strange metallic tripods, disruptor emitters pulsing with a blue static. He backed away, breath quickening. "They've got full gear, EMP rounds, particle disruptors, maybe even anti-gravity anchors." Aurelia walked calmly to the ship and placed both hands flat against the hull. The ship responded. A low harmonic sound filled the cavern, rising and falling like the purring of some massive creature awakening. More lights flared across the hull. Panels slid open. Energy lines pulsed down its spine. But it wasn't enough. "It's not stabilizing," she said, her voice strained. "I need more contact. I need you, Randy." He turned to her, saw the faint tremble in her shoulders. She wasn't faking this. This wasn't manipulation. She was fighting to survive. And somehow, so was he. "You're not gonna like this," he muttered, moving toward her. "I already don't," she replied. Another pulse hit the outer walls, this one louder, harder. The cavern shook violently. The ship's systems flickered. "They're trying to force a reset," Aurelia said. "If they succeed, all systems crash. I'll fall into stasis again, and you'll die from the tether backlash." "So we're out of time." "Yes." Randy closed his eyes for a beat, then opened them. "Tell me what to do." She stepped forward and took his hand. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You already know. You felt it each time we touched. Let go. Let me in." Their foreheads met. Randy felt her breath soft and warm. She smelled like ozone and something floral he couldn't name, sweet, wild, ancient. Then her lips brushed his again, but this time not as an exchange. This time it was the ignition. The chamber exploded with light. Randy felt himself pulled into her, not just physically, but mentally. He didn't just feel her thoughts. He became part of them. Her past, her fears, her awe of his stubborn humanity. Her memories flowed into his, her planet burning, her fall to Earth, her 200 years of solitude. Her belief that no human would ever free her. And then him. Simultaneously, she saw him. Randy as a child. Randy getting laughed at during a school presentation. Randy failing again and again. Randy crying alone in a cheap motel the night before his grandfather died. And yet, he kept standing up. "You're resilient," she whispered inside his mind. "You're terrifying. he whispered back. Their energies merged. The ship awoke. Crystalline structures glowed blinding white. The hull shivered as power surged through every system. From above, great chains snapped. The earth cracked, stone fractured. And just as the soldiers reached the entrance to the main chamber, the alien ship roared to life. Outside the chamber, gunfire erupted, sharp bursts of plasma-tipped rounds striking the surrounding stone. Shouts echoed down the tunnel as the soldiers breached the outer defenses. Inside, the alien vessel pulsed like a living heart, glowing brighter with each second. Randy and Aurelia remained joined. But it wasn't enough. "They're deploying quantum disruptors," Aurelia said breathlessly, hands still pressed to the crystalline core at the ship's center. "Their energy waveforms are scrambling our resonance. If they breach the inner chamber, they'll separate us." Randy finished, his voice tight. "And we both know what that means." "Separation during phase fusion would result in tether collapse," Aurelia said, emerald eyes flickering with stress. "You'd die instantly. I would regress to stasis, possibly permanently." The walls trembled again. A blast wave hit from above, dust cascaded from the cavern ceiling, and one of the ship's outer ridges cracked under pressure. The once graceful vessel groaned like a wounded beast. "We have to finish the bonding," Aurelia said. "Fully. No barriers, no reservations." Randy's throat went dry. "You mean right now? With gunmen outside the door trying to blast us to atoms?" "Yes," she replied calmly, stepping closer, her voice resolute. "Now is the only time." He stared at her. The woman who had once been a mystery inside a crystal coffin, a cosmic prisoner, a weapon, and now, his only path forward. "I need the ship to fly," she said, voice low and steady. "The ship needs me at full strength, and I need you." Another explosion rocked the chamber. A surge of heat flared through the floor as one of the disruptors struck the vessel's hull. Lights flickered. Systems whined in protest. The ship's core, already glowing beneath Aurelia's fingers, dimmed slightly. Randy didn't hesitate anymore. "Then let's do it." Aurelia blinked. "Are you certain?" "No," he said, stepping toward her. "But I'd rather burn with you than get dissected on an operating table by government freaks." She didn't smile, but something in her eyes softened. She led him toward the heart of the vessel, an elevated platform surrounded by slowly rotating crystal spirals. The air shimmered as they stepped inside, like crossing into another dimension. "Remove your clothing," she said. Randy hesitated, not out of modesty, but from the sheer surrealism of it all. "Are you always this direct?" She already shed her ceremonial wraps, revealing glowing violet skin that pulsed with inner light, neither obscene nor modest, just elemental. Like standing in front of a goddess born of electricity and starlight. "The connection must be direct," she said, gently reaching for him. He obeyed, dropping his shirt, stepping out of his jeans. The moment their bare skin met, the platform responded. Lights flared beneath them, and the crystal rings around the space spun faster. Aurelia placed her hands on his chest, her fingers trailing sparks across his skin. "Breathe with me," she whispered. "Let go of your separateness. Let me in." Randy nodded, exhaling slowly as their bodies pressed together. It was more than physical, it was fusion. Tendrils of energy spiraled out from them, weaving into light that danced across the air. The ship responded, singing a low harmonic tone that reverberated through their bones. His mind expanded. He saw stars being born and dying in the blink of an eye. He saw her people, the Viscaroyans, soaring through nebulae in cities made of living crystal. He saw the moment she crashed on Earth, and the agony of silence for 200 years. Aurelia trembled against him. "You are strong," she said into his mind, "and more than you know." Their energy surged. The light cocooned them fully now. Every part of Randy glowed with borrowed starlight, every heartbeat synchronizing with hers. They weren't two beings anymore. They were one. One breath, one will, one resonance. Outside, soldiers shouted. The inner tunnel was breached, but the ship didn't care. It roared awake. Panels along the wall snapped open. Conduits pulsed with emerald and violet current. A shock wave blasted outward from the platform, disintegrating several disruptor units placed at the chamber's edge. The soldiers stumbled, blinded, confused. From within the ship, the crystal console blazed with new life. Aurelia's voice rang out, no longer speaking English, but something older, deeper. A language that didn't need translation. The ship understood. The walls vibrated with power. "Hold on." Aurelia whispered, her voice inside Randy's head now, as well as his ears. This part may be uncomfortable. The platform lurched. The ship tore itself free. Stone cracked. Support beams collapsed. A thunderous roar echoed through the mountain as the vessel rose, shaking off centuries of dust and rock. Above them, the cave ceiling exploded outward, and sunlight speared into the chamber for the first time in generations. The ship ascended, a colossus of light and alien architecture, rising from the mountain like a phoenix reborn. On the surface, the soldiers scattered, panicked, as boulders rained down and shockwaves split the desert. Their weapons were useless now. The ancient power they had tried to contain had slipped from their grasp. Inside the ship, the platform stabilized. Randy opened his eyes. He was glowing. Aurelia stood beside him, radiant, more alive than ever. Their bodies were bathed in energy, their bonds solidified into something unbreakable. The ship had accepted them, and now nothing could stop them. "We did it," Randy whispered. She turned to him, her voice filled with awe. "We are no longer bound by this world." Outside, the sky opened up, and they flew. The ship screamed skyward. Beneath it, the Arizona mountains cracked open like a dropped plate. Jagged spires of stone burst outward, reduced to rubble as centuries of rock gave way to a rising force long buried. Dust billowed into the sky in thick clouds, blotting out the sun. From miles away, it would have looked like a small volcano had erupted. But this was no natural disaster. This was departure. Inside, Randy stood beside Aurelia on the command platform, breathless, glowing faintly with the remnants of their bonding. His skin shimmered with light that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's core. His heart raced, but his mind felt clear, clearer than it had ever been. He was no longer just Randy Archer, failed entrepreneur from Phoenix. He was something more now. "I can feel the ship," he said quietly, "like it's alive." "It is," Aurelia replied, her eyes glowing bright with renewed strength. "It was bred to respond to bonded energy. Now it's part of us, and we part of it." Around them, the interior shifted like it was breathing, walls of crystalline architecture that bent and adjusted with their movement. The bridge extended forward like a balcony into infinity. Translucent panels surrounded them, forming an unobstructed 360-degree view of the outside world. The earth stretched out below them, vast and raw. Deserts, mountains, clouds, familiar terrain now viewed from above. And still rising, military jets streaked into view, chasing trails of debris and plasma vapor. They locked onto the ascending vessel with targeting systems, trying to keep up with the impossible. One pilot's voice crackled over an open frequency. "Unknown craft. This is U.S. Command Air Group 7. Identify yourself or prepare to be intercepted." Aurelia raised a single hand toward the console. The ship responded without weapons, just a pulse of harmonic light. The pursuing aircraft systems fried instantly. Engines shut down mid-flight. Electronic controls went dark. The jets peeled off, gliding safely to emergency landings hundreds of miles away, but thoroughly disabled. "They won't follow," Aurelia said. "Not anymore." Randy chuckled, both relieved and amazed. "That was polite, considering they tried to kill us an hour ago." She stepped to the edge of the bridge. Politeness is a luxury of victory. Below them, the earth faded slowly from view. Cities became dots. Roads became threads. The clouds thinned. The atmosphere gave way to darkness, then stars. Randy leaned forward, staring in silence. The world looked small now. Not unimportant, just limited. He expected to feel panic, grief, a desperate desire to turn back. But instead, a strange peace settled over him. "This is it," he murmured. No turning back. Aurelia stood beside him, her tone softer than ever. "Would you go back if you could?" He thought about it. About the broken apartment, the eviction notices, the last voicemail from a girlfriend who had finally stopped waiting. About the funeral where no one but him had cried over his grandfather's casket. "No," he said. "There's nothing left for me down there." She nodded slowly. "Then we move forward, together." Clothing formed around their bodies, grown directly from the ship's bioreactive material. It was seamless, elegant, adapted to their forms and bonded signature. Randy's was a close-fitting coat and tactical gear hybrid. Aurelia's suit echoed ancient Viscar ceremonial wear, only now fused with practicality and movement. Randy stepped back from the viewing panel, exhaling. "So where do we go?" Aurelia smiled faintly. "Where do you want to go?" "That's the problem," he said, voice low. "I never wanted anything. Until now." They descended a corridor that reshaped itself with every turn leading toward the vessel's central hub. There a star chart blossomed in midair, three-dimensional, sprawling, rotating. Lines connected dozens of systems, all drifting in golden lattices of probability. One node at the center pulsed brighter than the rest. Aurelia touched it, and the projection zoomed in. A star system near the edge of the Cygnus Veil, she explained. Old contact records suggest remnants of Viscar colonies may exist, or at least clues to what happened to them. You're trying to find your people, yes, she admitted. But I am not driven by hope. I am driven by clarity. If they remain, I will find them. If they are gone, I will leave their memory behind properly. Randy looked at her with something deeper than curiosity now. Something like admiration. You waited 200 years, he said. Alone, trapped. And the first thing you want to do is go help someone else. She turned to him. I was born to protect. That has not changed. Only the scale. Randy was about to respond when the ship blared a low warning tone. A new image flared to life on the projection, a tracking beacon red pulsing. Behind them, far below, a burst of energy had lit up half a continent. The military marked our trajectory, Randy said grimly. Aurelia narrowed her eyes. They've triangulated our launch vector, which means they'll send more than jets next time. Her fingers danced across the control panels. We'll need to cloak and move fast. There's no safety in Earth's orbit. Another alert pinged across the interface. A secondary signal, smaller but familiar. Randy moved closer. Wait, is that a data transmission? It was from the old workbench, back in the mine's first chamber. The console his grandfather had left behind had sent something as the ship launched. Aurelia read the packet. Her expression shifted. What is it, Randy asked. She turned slowly. A map. To what? Her voice dropped to a whisper. To the Nexus. Randy's heart skipped. You mean the gateway? She nodded. To other dimensions, other universes. I thought it was legend, but your grandfather found it. And now it's in our hands. Not just ours, she said grimly. Others will chase it. He stared at her. Then we better get ahead. Outside the window, Earth spun slowly in the dark. Still beautiful, still home, but no longer his world. Randy reached for the console, initiating the jump sequence. Let's go. Aurelia joined him, hands brushing his, and together they vanished into the stars. The cantina on Proxima Station pulsed with alien music bass lines that vibrated in 6 dimensions, harmonies layered in frequencies the human ear could barely comprehend. The lights overhead shifted in rhythm, casting prismatic shadows across the dance floor. Beings of every shape, hue, and chemistry moved through the haze of synthetic incense and plasma vapor. At the bar, a tall human figure in a deep blue flight jacket finished his drink and signaled for another. On the house, Archer growled the bartender, a 6-armed Napanai with translucent skin that glowed faintly from within. For the hero of the Cygnus blockade. Randy Archer smirked. His shoulder-length hair had silver streaks, now a side effect of long-term energy bonding. His skin still shimmered faintly, a remnant of his link to Aurelia. Every scar on his body told a story, each one wilder than the last. That wasn't heroism, Czar, he said, taking the second shot. That was desperate improvisation. Improvisation that destroyed a hegemony destroyer with 4 freighters and a stolen mining drone, Czar replied. The archives call that legendary. Archives exaggerate. They do not fabricate. Randy shrugged, savoring the electric burn of the drink. Around him, quiet reverence hummed in the air. To many here, he wasn't just another traveler. He was the bonded human, the one who escaped Earth with a goddess of light and rewrote galactic politics with nothing but grit, luck, and love. He didn't let it get to his head much. Before he could down his third drink, the cantina's front entrance hissed open. A group of towering reptilian figures entered, armored in black chrome and fitted with pressurized breathing gear. Vexor mercenaries. The bar went still. Even the music lowered a decibel. Randy casually slid a finger across his communicator. The leader of the Vexar approached, his scaled brow furrowed beneath a transparent visor. The songs say a human with starlight in his blood dances with the violet goddess and steals from the hegemony like it were a market stall. Randy smiled. Songs are poetic. I'm just a guy making a living. You stole navigation charts from our outpost in the Taurus sector, the Vexar hissed. Borrowed, Randy corrected, and I left a thank you note. There's a bounty on your head. Only one, Randy said, mock offended. I must be losing my edge. The Vexar reached for a weapon. Before he could draw, the cantina's lights exploded into strobing chaos. Randy moved a blur of motion fueled by 10 years of bonding with a war-born alien guardian. He ducked, rolled, and kicked the mercenary's weapon away before vaulting over the bar and sliding a small orb from his jacket. He rolled it across the floor. It detonated in a shower of harmless, blinding light and loud earth rock music. AC/DC's Back in Black roared through the cantina. The patrons dove for cover. Randy sprinted through a service corridor as his communicator flared to life. "Rendezvous in 30 seconds, Aurelia's voice said calmly in his ear. "Cutting it close, love," he replied, dodging 2 station guards. As always, he reached the emergency airlocks just as the lead Vexar burst through the security door behind him, wielding a jagged plasma blade. "The hegemony will dissect your bonded mate," the mercenary snarled, "and make you watch before we end you." Bad move. Randy struck first, blinding fast, precise. Pressure points, neural links, alien anatomy that he'd spent a decade learning from Aurelia's shared memories. The Vexar dropped. Through the viewport, the familiar, sleek shape of their ship shimmered into existence. No longer just a vessel, it was a hybrid marvel of Viscar design and human chaos. It pulsed with their shared resonance. "Open the airlock," Randy ordered. The door hissed open. A containment field snapped into place just as the Vexar was sucked backward into space, caught in a stasis net. Seconds later, Randy was pulled aboard in a flash of blue light. The interior repressurized instantly. Aurelia waited at the entry chamber, taller, radiant, her presence even more commanding than it had been a decade ago. She wore a dark commander suit accented with glowing violet runes and crystalline ornaments across her shoulders. "You cut that close," she said, folding her arms. "You say that like it's new," Randy replied, leaning in to kiss her. She accepted it, letting the energy between them pulse briefly in the air, like a shared spark. "Containment field holding?" he asked. "Vexar secured. He'll make an excellent bargaining chip," she said. Randy made his way to the command bridge. "Did you get it?" Aurelia followed, holding up a small crystal data core. "The coordinates to the nexus point. Fully decoded," Randy whistled. "So it's real." "Yes," she said. "And in 17 days, the multidimensional gate opens again." Randy turned serious. "And it's in hegemony territory, guarded by autonomous weapon platforms from the first cycle." "Figures." The ship's sensors suddenly lit up 5 hegemony cruisers incoming. "They've deployed quantum trackers," Aurelia said. "They can pierce the cloaking field." Randy cracked his knuckles. "Perfect. I've been dying to try those Andromeda phase shift engines." She rolled her eyes. "One of these days, your recklessness will get us killed." "Maybe," he said with a grin, "but not today." The ship trembled as the engines powered up, drawing from the core they had awakened together. Outside, the cruisers opened fire energy beams, lighting up the void. But the ship didn't dodge. It phased, reality bent. The vessel surged through the enemy fleet, twisting space-time, leaving only trails of light and confusion behind. Inside the cockpit, Randy reached for Aurelia's hand. "Next stop, the nexus point." Her fingers closed around his. "And whatever lies beyond." They vanished in a streak of impossible brilliance. Behind them, the universe chased. Ahead of them, infinity opened.